So here to tell us about the history of the Jazz Festival, its return to the oversight of the University of Idaho and the Lionel Hampton School of Music, and upcoming events is Professor Vern Sielert. Please join me in welcoming him.
Appreciate it. Thank you all for coming and braving this weather. This, in the 11 years that I've been in Moscow, I think this is the worst so far. Maybe one, or the best. It depends how you want to look at it. No, my wife and I just moved this summer, but we're still in the same neighborhood. But our first house that we bought here, right across the street, there's a couple, Bill and McGee Parish. I don't know if you remember the parishes. And I was out shoveling. It was kind of we had a lot of snow, and I was shoveling, and he was out there with a snow blower, and he stopped and we chatted for a minute. And I said, "This is a pretty bad winter. Is it going to be like this every year?" And he said, "Well, no, this one's not too bad. 48, 49." So anyway, but my 6-year-old son, is enjoying the snow definitely, especially when school gets canceled. He like that a lot. But it's my pleasure to be here to talk to you about the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival. As Nancy mentioned, this is a transitional year for the festival. The administration and the running of the event has come full circle back to the School of Music. That's where it started back in the 1960s. And it grew, as many of you know, and it grew and it grew, and it got so big that all the management kind of left the music building and was in its own place, different place on campus. And frankly, it got to where the music school and the festival didn't have a whole lot to do with each other. When John Clayton took over the artistic directorship of the festival, one of the great things that he did is he brought a little bit more of that back in inviting the jazz band from the University of Idaho, Jazz Band 1, the band that I direct, to perform on the evening concerts. We had always had a role during the day and the afternoon things, but that was great, and we're going to continue that, and I'll talk to you more about all the changes and things that we're thinking about. Some of the goals for today, just to talk about our vision and some of the, like I said, the changes that we're hoping to make. Some of them going back to things from the past, and many of them trying to catch the festival up to some 21st century ideals. And then we can talk also about ways to engage the community, because this festival would not be what it is and could not function without the community, without volunteers, without everybody pitching in, and really I think the welcoming embrace that Moscow has always had for the Jazz Festival. So we can talk a little bit more about that as well. But first, how about a little brief history. 1967 was the first jazz festival. It was called the Idaho Jazz Festival back then. Started with one guest artist and about 8 bands, I think, that were invited from the area. And a couple of gentlemen that were on the music faculty back then, Bob Spevacek, who taught tuba, and a gentleman by the name of Dave Sielert were kind of instrumental in getting the festival going. They have both since retired, but we're actually inviting them back for the 50th. They're going to be guests of ours because of their role. And of course, Lynn Skinner, who took over the festival a few years later and really grew it into the huge and fantastic event that it became and still is. It was in 1984 that Doc Skinner invited Lionel Hampton and his band to participate. And many of you maybe have heard this story, but Doc was really great about getting to the artist directly, talking to the artist, not going necessarily through management, but just getting to the artist. And he was able to talk to Lionel Hampton. He called him up and said, "I'd love to invite you and your band to the festival." And Lionel said, "Well, is that anywhere near where those Nez Perce Indians are?" And Doc said, "Well, as a matter of fact, it is." And he said, "Well, okay, then we'll come." And Doc was a little perplexed about that. And it wasn't until later when Lionel got here that the full story unfolded. It was the late 1940s. Lionel's band, his big band, was on the road, as all the dance bands were back then, swing bands, dance bands. And they wound up, and I can't remember whether it was Portland or Seattle, but it was somewhere in the Northwest, went to go to their hotel, and they were not allowed to stay there. No African Americans, that kind of situation. And so they were outside the hotel and ran into some other musicians, and these musicians were from a band called the Nez Persians, which was a territorial dance band from the Nez Perce tribe. And that they were, I mean, you have to remember, this is the 1940s, there's no TV. The swing era was waning, but dance music was still very much what, you know, people went to dances on the weekends. And so they got to talking, and the Nez Perceans said, that's no problem, you can come stay with us. And Lionel never forgot that. So, and that, you know, people wonder about, you know, what's the connection? Why did, you know, a university in Idaho, Lionel Hampton, this great big New York jazz musician, how did that start? And that is one part of it. And so he brought his band out in 1984. And then that really helped to perpetuate the festival, in that Lionel would say, well, maybe I can get some of my friends to come out. And that's when we started seeing Dizzy Gillespie, Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald, Ray Brown. I mean, it's like a who's who of jazz history from that time period. So much so that it was decided to name the School of Music at the University of Idaho in honor of Lionel Hampton. And that happened, I don't have the year, I remember, it was like, I want to say it was 87 or 88, something along those lines. And that, you know, one thing you also should know is that we are the only school of music in the country named after a jazz musician. So there in North Carolina, there is the Miles Davis Department, or Miles Davis Department of Jazz Studies or something at one of the schools there. And then in 1998, as some of, you know, that era of musicians, some of them began to pass away, it was many of their archives, their libraries were donated to the University of Idaho, and that began the start of our international jazz collections. And I just met Aaron, who works in special collections. And are you brand new here? Or?
Pretty new, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to talk a lot about that, because we're hoping to incorporate some of the holdings that we have in special collections, along with various venues in the festival, and make the public aware of that. And then fast forward. Hi, come on in. 2002 was Lionel's last appearance. He passed away. And all this time, the festival was growing and growing. And like I mentioned before, Doc Skinner was a music education professor in the School of Music, but got so busy with the festival that he didn't do that anymore. This was a 100% full-time job running the festival. He retired, I believe, in 2008, 2007. That's probably right. And it was that year that U of I was, or it says the U of I was awarded. It was actually the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival was awarded the National Medal of Arts by President Bush. And fast forward now to where we are, 2017, for a variety of reasons, and some new administration folks, of course, a new president, new provost, a new dean of the class. They took a look at the festival and thought, you know what? We have this great music festival, and this great school of music here on campus, why don't we merge those two back together? And so here we are. My role is artistic advisor, so I spent my summer on the phone talking with lots of musicians and managers and booking agents, thinking of a lineup, thinking of what would look good for the evening concerts. My wife Vanessa, who was mentioned, she has been taking care of, she's the educational advisor, so she's been dealing with how is the structure going to look for students, for the visiting groups. Tori Lawrence, who is the chair of the Lionel Hampton School of Music, our director, has been shouldering all kinds of things, dealing with budget and dealing with logistical things. We were very fortunate that we were able to hire a gentleman by the name of Aaron Mayhew, and many of you may not know Aaron, but I bet you've probably seen him. Aaron was in charge of events for U of I, and so dealt with commencement and all these things, and just knows the inner workings of the university very, very well. So he's doing a great job. He was able to hire an assistant. Through class, we, the School of Music, got 6 new graduate teaching assistantships to help us with the festival, which is really, really great. So all kinds of good things and good support from the upper administration, and looking forward for our festival. Just kind of an overview of what makes up the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival. The main focus, we feel that what needs to be the main focus are the student performances during the day. We will have upwards of 130 school groups here, and I don't know the exact count of how many students, but in the thousands, we're thinking probably around 5,500 students visiting over 3 days. If you were a typical student, you're in your jazz band or your jazz choir, you will get on the bus, you will come to the festival, you will get out somewhere, you will warm up, you will go play your short performance, 20 minutes or so, in front of some adjudicators, and they will make comments, and after your performance you get to go into a different room and work with one of those adjudicators one-on-one. They get to rehearse the group and give them some instantaneous feedback, and our list of adjudicators is really excellent. We've got a great group of really well-respected mostly from the Northwest, but some from other parts of the country, jazz musicians and jazz educators that we feel can really communicate with students, and communicate with students at the elementary level, the junior high level, the high school level, and the college level, because that's the swath of students that we have here for the festival. Throughout the day, after you've had your 20-minute performance and your critique, after that, there are dozens and dozens of workshops that you can attend by all the artists, by other jazz educators, by our own Lionel Hampton School of Music faculty, and those are free to anyone in the community. That's another change that we made this year. And they're fascinating, and they're a chance for the students to get kind of a little more up-close interaction with our artists. And another change we made this year is every artist that's going to be on the main stage at the evening concerts, no matter how big name they are, they have to do some kind of educational workshop during the day. So we'll have access to everyone that you see on this list of artists that I'm going to show you in a minute. Will be giving workshops during the day. So, and it's that kind of interaction, I think, in my 11, 15, 16 years of being in the Northwest, that I've heard the most about the festival. That's what excites people, is that they can be going to eat lunch in the Sub or the Commons or whatever, and they can sit next to some famous jazz person and just have that kind of one-on-one, close-up relationships. The evening concerts will all be held this year in the Kibbe Dome. There's been, over the years, a couple changes to that, but we're going to a 3-night format. It'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We were going to try to, well, we're not going to try, we are. This concerts will start at 7:30, and the goal, my goal, is for them to be over by 10. I'm not sure I will meet that goal this year, but I know that has been an issue with the festival before, and jazz musicians like to play. They like, especially if you're bringing people together that don't normally play together. It's just fun, and they like to play and they like to go. And I know that the concerts have gone pretty late at times. But some of the feedback we've heard, not only from the community, but particularly from the educators. I mean, 7th grade kids can't deal with being up that late. Number one, bus drivers have certain time constraints that they have to follow. And so we're trying to sort of meet those needs a little bit better. And so the old adage, leave them wanting more, I think is a good thing in this case. So another component of the festival is an outreach program that we have called Jazz in the Schools. And the way that works is some of our artists come in earlier in the week. They'll arrive on Monday. We put them together in various little performing groups, and they go out and do very quick little 30, 40-minute workshops for all levels of schools. They do quite a bit in Moscow, but they're as far north as Sandpoint, I think they've gone, down to Grangeville, Lapway, just out into the schools. And especially we try to target schools, or we will try to target schools this year, that might not have the resources or the opportunity for events like that to happen. So that's a really, really good one. And so if we factor in the number of students that we impact with that program, it just multiplies exponentially. A lot more students get affected by the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival. I've mentioned some of these, but the goals and the changes for 2017. For the leadership has come back to the Lionel Hampton School of Music, and like I mentioned, myself, Vanessa, Tori Lawrence, and we have a great team, and I just got back from something called the GEN Conference, which is Jazz Educators Network. And that's an organization of jazz musicians and jazz educators from literally all over the world. And our conference this year was in New Orleans, which I was very excited to go there and have some really delicious food. And I thought, oh, it's going to be nice. It'll be warmer, it'll be in the 60s. It was windy, and it was in the upper 20s, and all the locals are like, it was never like this. It felt colder there than it did here, whatever.